I'm Mayk, and here in Philadelphia, the city just saw an 8-day strike by city workers. On this episode of Battleground Politics, we're talking about the impact of the strike now and in the future. The tentative agreement reached by the union and the city provides for 3% raises each year of a 3-year contract, plus a $1,500 bonus in the first year, and a provision where workers would get an additional 2% boost after they've been with the city for 4 years. The strike brought regular trash collection in the city to a halt, and it created turmoil in neighborhoods and city politics. I sat down with a panel to talk about it. We have assembled a panel to discuss how this strike played out across the city and what it will mean for other municipal unions and for Mayor Parker's political future. Joining us now are Danny Bauder from the Philadelphia AFL-CIO, Zach Kimmel, an attorney with Reed Smith LLP, who specializes in labor and employment law and representing employers. Pat Loeb is a reporter with our news partners KYW Radio, and Reverend Mark Kelly Tyler from the AME Church. He supported Mayor Parker in the last election. Welcome to all of you. Thanks for joining the conversation today. And Reverend Tyler, I'm going to start with you and take a step back as we look at the impact of this strike. 8 days for the city. And the impact, when I talk about the impact, I'm not just talking about workers, I'm not just talking about the city. This impacted regular folks going about their day. How do you view the impact of this strike on the city?
Well, first of all, on vacation during the strike, I was getting text messages from friends outside of the city like, are these pictures true? People just could not believe the amount of trash that piled up quickly. But I think long term, it's hard to see either side coming out of this saying that they were a winner. I mean, it feels to me that if I were the mayor, I'd feel kind of diminished in some ways. I mean, I guess you could take the stance that she won, but it doesn't really feel like a victory. Same with DC 33, and the citizens didn't win. I mean, it just feels like at the end of the day, everybody felt deflated. No one was happy. No one really got anything to move forward. And I think it just speaks really to kind of where we are, as a society and as a city, where we can find money. Like last year, we were throwing billions of dollars around to build an arena in Chinatown that nobody really wanted. And, here we are now, we don't have $1 or $2 an hour extra for people who are essential workers. So it just feels, it felt like to me that we can always find money for what we want, but for the people who need it the most, it's just not there.
Jenny, how did you view how this played out? You were there. I saw you. You were at some of the rallies supporting DC 33.
Yeah, spent a lot of time with members of DC 33 on the picket line, like you said, rallies, things like that. I think I would really echo what Reverend Tyler said in that it really did not feel like there was a decisive victor, so to speak, if you looked at it, through that lens. But I would say, with some time now to reflect on it, and it's only been a few days, I really feel like there was an opportunity here for everyone. And, one of the statements that we put out, I mentioned that I felt like the administration had an opportunity to make a, historic, or make history and provide historic support for workers who have been for decades and for many different mayoral administrations been pushed to the side and marginalized in the way that they were treated, in these negotiations. Philadelphia is still the poorest big city in America. And, we have record numbers of citizens that live in extreme poverty. And so any increase, in wages of jobs that have, low barriers to employment, low entry barriers, is a victory for all Philadelphians. And so, it's just unfortunately kind of kept in line with the way that negotiations with 33 have gone in the past.
Well, you said there was an opportunity for something historic. The way the mayor's office looks at it, that they did do something historic. That's the way she has framed it. You don't see it that way.
That is indeed the framing from the administration. If you look at it that way, administration by administration and things like that, sure. that 1-year contract added with this 3-year contract does, equal, something that is historic. And it's not to say that there aren't raises coming. There is, the sign-in bonus that we saw as well. So there is, the additional salary step that's going in. That 5th step is great. But the fact of the matter is, the MIT calculation is something like, $60,000 is a living wage in Philadelphia, and many of these workers are working under $40,000, and the median salary of a 33 member is $46,000 a year.
Well, let me get around the table here. Zach, you've been in negotiations like this before. You've seen them up close. The way this strike ended after 8 days, sort of the timing of when it ended, what did that tell you?
I think it all came down to the legal pressure that the administration put on everyone. I mean, you saw them going to the courts.
With the injunctions that they were successful at getting.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. So they were successful not once, not twice, but 3 times. And when you have a situation like that, and you have that trash accumulation that continues to happen, they're going to be able to make those same arguments again and again and again about a public health risk. It's sort of that leverage piece. The union's strongest leverage piece is that striking. And if the mayor is able to continue to take that away, that leverage is gone. So understanding that's where things were going and that leverage is being taken, I think that it really put the pressure on the union. You also have the issue with the contempt motion, right? You had the picketing order and you had allegations saying that some union members were damaging vehicles, that were vandalizing vehicles, that were creating violence. Again, all allegations. But nonetheless, it put the union in a hard place to say, hey, we got to make sure our members are doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Pat, let's take a turn and talk about what's ahead. You and I were at the news conference that the mayor and city officials had in City Hall this past week, and she was talking a little bit about healing. What are the challenges that are now ahead for the city and for the administration?
Yeah, I do think taking the strike hurt her a little bit, but whether anyone will still feel that sort of residual resentment by the time she's running for re-election, very unlikely. And, if you look on social media, the DC 33 president is getting as much criticism as she is, which is maybe a little confounding to me, and maybe people haven't paid attention to what he's saying, or maybe he hasn't stated it assertively enough, but I don't think it was a bad outcome. And 3% a year in raises is, not bad. And when you add that 2% step, half the union will be eligible for that step next year when it takes effect. That's a 5% raise for half the union. And most of them will be eligible for it by the end of the race. So that's a 5% raise for the rest of them. And the signing bonus for workers who make, as you said, not great, a $1,600, $1,500 signing bonus. That's, that is something that he could really be promoting and saying, I took this strike for a good reason. But, yeah.
Well, and he has also set out things that the union has set out things that they said that the city wanted that they knocked down. We heard from Mayor Parker when she addressed the city after this tentative agreement was set, and she said, as she has said before, that she is a pro-union, pro-labor public official. That is how she identifies herself. Is she still viewed that way in the city?
I would say probably by and large, yes. And, one thing that the mayor did say yesterday, and I believe that you mentioned earlier in this, is, that there's time to heal. And I think that there's, time for us to have opportunities to work together again in the future on, areas of mutual interest, for instance, transit funding.
Transit funding, what's going to happen with SEPTA, certainly that's out there. Reverend.
Yeah, so I was thinking of something that Danny, you said earlier about a missed opportunity, and that's kind of been resonating with me throughout this whole ordeal. I mean, so her 3 major issues, who can forget, right? I want to make the city the safest, cleanest, greenest. She kept saying it until it became a mantra. All 3 of those were under scrutiny this week, right? So the cleanness, obviously, and this also exposed us to all this trash we accumulate, green. and there was a horrific shootout, you know, at the same time. So all of these initiatives are kind of right in the news. So it speaks to me about, it's easy to come up with a campaign slogan. I think if she didn't know it before now, she knows now. It's much more difficult to make it happen, especially in the poorest big city in the country when you have a limited pot of resources to deal with. So to me, the missed opportunity is, I mean, again, I go back to billionaires who come out, you know, when they want something, you know, the checkbook is wide open. This was an opportunity to go to people to talk about investing in Philly. I'll just tell you, I was embarrassed and appalled to find out that sanitation workers only make 18 to 22 an hour. I always thought, because they were union jobs, that, you know, I see these guys and I'm like, oh, you guys should be doing more than that for like what you're getting paid. Now I'm like, oh, I see why you do what you do when I see you doing it, because you can literally get more working at fast food. And that's, I mean, it's a heck of a job to do in the seasons that we call them to do it. So I do think it's a missed opportunity, and I'm looking for not just historic contracts, but transformative contracts.
Well, we do have more contracts coming up in the city. And Pat, I know you'll be covering this as the city negotiates these, and really already is negotiating them.
Yes, and typically because the police and fire go to arbitration, they get more than the union, DC 33 and 47, are able to negotiate directly with the city. And so in a way, it was important for the mayor, in her quest for fiscal stability, to hold the line on increases, because she's looking at those setting the standard, the base for what comes next.
And Zach, how much does that play into things if you are if you are a city, if you are a municipality or a state or a county, and you are negotiating one contract and you know you've got other ones coming down the pike? How does that impact the negotiations? What have you seen? No,
it has to, right? I mean, I think the mayor made very clear what her strategy is going to be and what her administration strategy is going to be. And it's going to be aggressive, but it's also clear that when they put their foot down and they draw a line in the sand, they're going to hold to that. And I think that they're trying to signal to the unions that they're not messing around when they provide something and they provide the rationale, and this is why they're doing it. The flip side of that whole thing is that, you know, all these other unions are going to look to these negotiations and they're going to say, okay, maybe the 3%, that's the floor. Maybe we can go a little bit higher. And, you know, we'll see what they're going to go for. But, you know, again, Mayor Parker, right? Fiscal responsibility, fiscal stability, that seems to be the mantra. How are you expecting these next negotiations to be impacted by what we just saw?
It's hard to say. As Pat said, the Local 22, the firefighters, and FOP Lodge 5 end up in binding arbitration, but District Council 47's Local 2187 is, you know, in negotiations with the city currently and has been for a few weeks. They have a strike vote scheduled, I believe, on the 15th. And so I would imagine that the outcome of the strike, or the end of the strike, has certainly influenced the negotiations that have taken place since Tuesday, and would likely, influence how the members of 2187 feel when they're looking at whether or not to authorize a strike on, the 15th.
Does this have the possibility of having any kind of lasting impact, whether that's political impact or whether it's how people view the city and city services and whether they can rely on those city services, how they feel about where they live? Does anyone think that this has the possibility to have a lasting impact, or do we turn the page and move on?
It has a lasting impact for what city employees make. And as Reverend Tyler said, this particular union, they went 5 years without a raise in the early 2000s. They do deserve more. But is this the time to try to make up for years of deprivation? With the Trump administration changing the calculus for what cities will receive in federal funding, it's a very large risk to try to make up for those years of poor raises.
Well, yeah, if you're done. Well, I was going to say that you bring in the Trump administration. On the ground, you know, as a person in this area, sometimes it feels like you can't catch a break anywhere. So you get it from, you know, if you're a Democratic voter, like most people in Philly, you get it from a Democratic administration. You get it from the federal government, this, you know, constant pushing down on people who are at the very bottom. And at the same time, at the very top, you look and nobody's cutting anything there. They're only increasing and getting more. And so it's I don't know where the breaking point is, but it just feels like we're moving closer to that. And I hope that the breaking point is actually something that breaks for the good and not for our bad, because I think the opportunity is always before us to do more.
We're going to have to leave the conversation there. Thank you to all of you for being here. You can find more Battleground Politics on our website, NBC10.com, on our NBC10 app, our NBC Philadelphia YouTube page, or wherever you get your podcasts.